Hello and good morning, good afternoon, good evening, David Boles live. Interesting day here on the East Coast. Already, we just started the day and we're into some interesting things going on. Sirens outside, a couple of critical emergencies we had to take care of right before the live stream started. But that's the point of life, right? Problem solving. If you don't have any problems, you're not living your life right. And when crises come up, when something needs to be solved, do you get upset about it? No, because it's not going to help. The problems just remain, and now you have all this bad juju that you just created by getting upset. So a problem presents itself, you problem solve and move on. And you say, hello, this is David Boles Live. Every day we have to, yes? No? Yes. Barely alive, but we are alive today. And the hot water machine has been going crazy today. It's going to play us a little song when it's heated up the water. So if you hear something in the background, you'll know what's happening. As you can see over my shoulder, the Les Pauls have traded places. Switcherooed. The gold top is now out, saying hello, and the 57 historic resurrection, reconsideration, whatever they call it, is sitting next to it. And I love that black guitar. It has 3 pickups, but however, not well behaved when I first got her. Had a neck problem. I don't think the neck was ever set up right. A lot of screwing, this kind of screwing, a lot of tension creating, a lot of bridge building, but now it plays like an absolute dream. So don't give up. You have a problem? Just solve it. Here's another problem that presented itself this morning, and this always, every year for the last 10, 15 years, always angers me on some level, and I try not to say anger because it does make me angry, but I try to control my rage. Bolesblogs.com is hosted on WordPress.com, WP.com. And we're on an expensive business plan, and we pay yearly in January. So for the past 10 years or so, every year about this time, I get a renewal notice. Hey, we're going to automatically renew your business plan with WordPress. And I always do renew, but I don't like being forced into auto-renewing. I'm perfectly capable of renewing it myself. And if something happens to me and I can't renew, then I can't renew. But I don't want it auto-charged on any credit card that I have on file with them, and they require you to have a credit card on file. Okay. And I always turn off auto-renew. I renew, and they turn on auto-renew, and I turn off auto-renew. Then 6 months later, I check in on my account, and auto-renew is turned back on. So I turn it back off. And this morning, I get an email from WordPress.com saying, hey, we're going to auto-renew you in a month. We're just letting you know. They're going to auto-renew me in a month? That's December. I auto-renew. My year is up in January, the end of January, not the end of December. Oh, hot water's ready. I don't know if you can hear that, but it's ready to go. So I go into my account. Oh, auto-renew's turned back on. We're charging your account end of December. And I'm thinking, I find that a little discomforting, that even though I am good until the end of January, that they are forcing my auto-renew a year early. And my thinking is, if they force auto-renew on me a month early for my year, they're going to do that every year. So every year I will lose a month. And after 12 more years of doing that, I'll have to pay double, probably. Oh, sirens in the background. It's a big day here on the East Coast. Lots of emergencies out there. So, auto-renewing, end of December. I turn off the auto-renew. Are you sure you want to turn off auto-renew? What's wrong with you? Are you leaving? Make sure you download everything from your account because WordPress.com is going to get rid of you because you're not auto-renewing. And then there's one option where you can say, I just prefer to pay myself manually. Why would you do that? So I go through all those steps. I will renew on my own. I am a capable adult. And the system says, okay, fine. Auto-renew is now off, but when you expire, we're deleting everything you have. So make sure you have a download. And then I notice that my manual renew date is in fact, as it always has been, the end of January. Some might call that sleazy. I find it disconcerting. If you play along and auto-renew, they're going to charge you a month early. And if you do it yourself, then you get your full year. I don't like it. Why would I want to pay a month early, lose a month on my blog hosting if I don't have to? The conveniences that I lose a month by auto-renewing, I don't like it. Doesn't make sense to me. But what are you going to do? Also in the news today, I thought this was very interesting. An Einstein manuscript has been found from a collaborator of his in 1914. And I guess Einstein liked to always get rid of his notes. He didn't want anybody to see what he was thinking before he was ready to share. And this is going up, this portfolio is going up for sale today. I think Christie's is doing the auction. This is the manuscript. You can't really read anything. I'll enlarge it. They're expecting this to sell for like $2.5, $3 million, $4 million. You know, there's somebody out there who'll probably pay more for it. And it's Einstein's notes, it's collaborators' notes, and then both of their notes together on the same page. And I think work process is interesting. We write the Human Mean podcast here together, so you can see and share in the work process. Kind of interesting. And this story reminded me of Martin Scorsese, the theater director, film director, and how he went out and bought up all of his student movies and then destroyed them. So no one could see or know, I guess, how bad he was when he was starting out on a career. And I believe his wife said, why? I mean, you want to buy your old movies, okay, but why destroy them? Why not keep them so people can see where you started and where you ended up? And I guess, as I understand it, his ego was just too big that he didn't want anybody to think that he was less than perfect. Well, I guess Einstein was the same way. He didn't want anybody to know his thought process and his mistakes until he was ready to publish them and have them under public scrutiny. And that's what happened with this. His collaborator saved their manuscripts, and Einstein destroyed all of his work process. So this is all that's really left. I think there's one other portfolio that survived somehow, but this is the miracle portfolio. But what I found most interesting about it is that some of the paper that this is written on is called foolscap. 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 I had never heard that before, referring to paper. So I looked it up, and it's basically a little bigger than A4 paper. 13 by 8 inches or 13 by like 15.75. So it's kind of a largish piece of paper. But you learn something new and you share it. And I wonder what it must have taken for this collaborator to save these manuscripts. What over 100 years, it survives. And I'm reminded of the hoarding that went on for the 10 years, 29 to 39 in America. With the Great Depression, everyone's scared, hungry, and they would hoard things. They would keep their money, they would barter. And it sort of reminds me 90 years later of what we went through in America and the world with this pandemic and this pandemic hoarding. And we're sort of part of that, I guess. You buy a great big giant box of 50 facial tissues, a great big giant box of toilet paper, just to have it because you can run out. And if the lights go out and there's a crisis and you need help, no one's going to help you. You got to help yourself. And we have lots of cans of vegan chili. Our living room is an exercise room. It's really fascinating. So I think there are some sirens again. Something's going on today. Must be in the air. So you get concerned that you don't want to be stuck with shipping problems and be without toilet paper, which is a very interesting idea. We don't hoard like people hoard toilet paper. We buy in bulk and then save it, but we don't buy too much bulk. But it's interesting what Freud said about it. Toilet paper and pooping as a gift, and how you want to take care of that gift, and why some people really obsess about toilet paper. But that's a whole nother conversation we can have on a different day. Oh, thank you so much, Christopher, for the follow. So, when is hoarding too much hoarding? We don't know. But I always like having backups to a backup. I like having plan A, B, and C, and if that makes me OCD or some kind of mini hoarder, it's okay, I'll take it. Now we're going to have a conversation about, and I forgot to bring it because of my emergency, so I'm going to actually save the RTD protein. That's coming up momentarily. Actually, I'm going to take a very small break. Don't go anywhere. I'm leaving, but I'm coming right back. I'll put up the intermission screen, but I'll leave everything on just so I can go get what I'm looking for. I'll be back in a second. And we're back. Thank you for waiting. Two things I've been meaning to show you all week, and I keep forgetting to bring them, so I thought, well, let's just take a pause, and I will go find them. We previously had a nice conversation about protein drinks, so I showed you my protein powders. Well, now I'm going to show you RTD, my two favorite RTDs, which means ready to drink protein drinks. Now, they're heavy to ship, they're heavy to carry around, but they're very, very convenient if you are out in the world and you are watching what you eat, but you need to make sure you get enough protein. The first one is this, Orgain. Now, they have great sales. You can usually get 30% off. You don't have to subscribe to get 30%, but you need to be a little bit patient. Now, there are two types of protein drinks. These are both vegan, mainly pea proteins. One is a meal replacement, which is what this is. It's a nutritional shake, 16 grams of protein, which is not a lot, but it has all of this. 220 calories, yeah, but lots of minerals, because this is replacing a meal. So 220 calories, 16 grams of protein. Not a lot of protein, but very delicious. Comes in chocolate and vanilla. I have no relationship with them other than I buy their stuff. Excuse me. They don't pay me. They don't advertise on this channel. My second, this is actually my most favorite protein drink. That is just straight, glorious protein. The largest RTD protein that I have been able to find on the market. By OWN, only what you need. New Jersey company. This is their Elite Pro protein drink. And do you see that? 35 grams of plant protein in a single drink. This is their No Nut Butter Cup, which is also my favorite. They have chocolate, vanilla, and this, which is like, I guess supposed to be a Reese's Pieces, a Reese's peanut butter cup thing. And it does taste very good, I admit. Now, this is 240 calories. This is a protein blast. This is not a meal replacement. You drink this because you need the protein. You want to get at least 60 grams of protein a day. And if you're dieting or working out or trying to cut, you got to make sure that your calories are low and your protein is high. So if you have 2 of these a day, spaced out, 70 grams of protein, you're 10 over for your minimum, and you're feeling very good. OWN is in New Jersey. You order. These are expensive because it has really double the protein of the competition, so it's almost double the price per RTD. But you can get good deals. I think right now they're having a sale, 30% off their whole store. And because we're in New Jersey, you order in one day and it's delivered the next day. It's fast. Because when you're ordering heavy stuff like this, it doesn't always show up when it's supposed to show up. So now you know the 2 RTD protein drinks that I love the best. I do not have a relationship with OWN or Orgain. They do not pay. They don't advertise. This is not a PR stunt. This is just me sharing with you what I think I know. Now we're getting into a little bit of a touchy subject, maybe? I don't know. Touchy to some, but not to all. And that is this idea of inclusion, race, gender, nationality, sexuality, pronouns. It's all very big. Some people call this wokeness. People have been asleep, and now they're waking up to what's going on around them in the world. So, what does that mean? Well, I guess it means if you're sort of in the majority, the ordinary, the middle, you're maybe going to be in a little bit of trouble. Because there are people around you who feel strongly that it is their turn in the world to do what they wish to do. Even if you've been around for a long time, 50, 60 years, your time has passed, and you are to be replaced. Now, I'm not necessarily talking about those white power chants that we saw in Charlottesville. Jews will not replace us. I'm not talking about that. But the sentiment from where that comes from does have some basis in some very real things that are concerning. I guess there's only room for so many people to have so many opportunities before things start to change and modify and become unfortunate and ugly. Because to have a turn usually means someone's in your spot. So you have to remove that person from your spot, the spot that you want, so you can move up. And this happens everywhere. It's not a big thing. But for people who are on the slot and see people trying to get them off their slot, it is a concern. And I am reminded of a university teaching where a department is given certain, I call them slots, some say lines, a certain amount of full-time PhDs, a certain amount of part-time adjuncts. And the coveted line that people want are the tenure-protected lines of full-time teaching in a university. Okay, that's good. Well, who gets that line? Who decides to fill that line? Is it the department? Is it the university? Is it the dean? Is it the president? And the answer is yes, and it depends. Sometimes people are put on lines for political reasons or even personal reasons. You want a faculty member to come over from another university who's a star, and that star faculty member happens to have a spouse who is not a star but who teaches. So you got to make a new line for that non-star spouse to have a place so you can get the star spouse. That's filling a line. So do you remove someone from a line they're on, or do you add a new line? And it gets sticky if you decide to add a new line, because then word goes out, oh, look, this department has a new line to fill. So people apply, and they're interested. And people who have been teaching there for a long time think they're owed that line. And then eventually word comes down from above that, no. This looks like an open line, but it's not an open line. We're advertising it as if it's an open line, but me, the dean, I'm going to decide who fills that open line, and I've already decided 3 months ago before any of this started, because I need that star person from that other university to come here. And this line that I created for you that you're excited about because you get to hire a spectacular new faculty member is not your line at all. Now you can turn down the line, which means you'll have less money and less influence at the university, and I'll be angry with you and punish you as the dean. Or you can just be quiet and let this happen, and I get to put my person on that line. So what's a department head to do? I can't wait to meet my new faculty member. I would love to please you, dean. I would love to have this non-star faculty member take that line that I thought I was going to give to my other superstar instructors who've been here forever and who have been waiting for a line to open up. Well, that's kind of an introduction about what we're going to be discussing next, and this idea of replacement, this idea of who gets to prove themselves and who just gets to jump ahead of the line. And I understand this is a vicious circle that travels in many directions and goes many different places. So it's going to be an interesting thing to try to figure out together. And we're going to do that next. And we're going to start with the Dramatists Guild. of which I am a member in good standing. But sometimes things happen that just make you sit back and go, well, that's interesting. And I'm not sure if that's good. Good for who? Good for me? Good for people coming up? That's what we're going to try to wrestle with next. Because it's time for a blood pressure break. This is a real one. Back in a fast moment. And we are back. I'm going to show you that in a minute. But let's take the big view right now, as we try to figure out what's going on in this crazy, wacky world of ours, in which we try to survive and stay relevant into our young age and our old age. So old people wonder, how can I stay relevant? And young people say, how can I become relevant? And people in the middle wonder what I'm doing here. So I'm a member of the Dramatists Guild for many, many years. I joined back in, I think, 1983, when I was a freshman at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln. And my mentor, Joe Baldwin, said, hey, join the Guild. And the Guild has been an invaluable resource. They have a beautiful office in New York City. You can be a member anywhere, live anywhere, and be a member of the Guild to be protected by Guild bargaining. But the first thing the Dramatists Guild will tell you is, we are not a union. We are a guild. Okay. I guess that's a legal definition that I'm not sure I completely understand, but they're adamant about it. But if you have a contract, or if you need some advice, legal advice, you send in their contract and they'll read it for you and give you feedback and say, we don't support this, we do support this, ask for this, take that out. And then it's up to you to negotiate with the individual theaters the sort of deal that you want. And you can take the advice of the Guild or not take the advice of the Guild. And all of that's free within your membership position. But if you are in a first-class show, a Broadway show, then I believe the Guild takes a cut of your money as an author. It used to be 1.5% of what you're paid goes directly to them. And maybe it's up to 3% now. I'm not sure. But if there is one area in American culture that tries to be forward-thinking and woke and full of change, it is the theater, the live theater. And you'll see this in non-traditional casting. You see it in the Broadway show Hamilton, where these are not old white men telling you history. These are people of various ethnicities and colors and cultural backgrounds telling you this story. So, I recently received this in the mail from the Dramatists Guild. You saw part of it in that website, which we'll go back to in a moment. The inclusion rider. Now, a rider is something that you can add to a contract that you want to see happen. And if you have any sort of power or grace or discrimination, you can get that rider included in your contract. So what is an inclusion rider? Well, before I read this to you, I'll show you what it says. The Dramatists Guild of America is excited to announce the rollout of our new and groundbreaking inclusion rider. As part of our commitment to foster a diverse, equitable, inclusive, accessible, and anti-racist industry, we crafted an inclusion rider as a resource to support all playwrights, composers, lyricists, librettists, and producers who have a desire to exercise these principles in the hiring of personnel involved in their productions. Okay. In theory, sounds good. Interesting, fair. In practice, I wonder if it's going to get a little sloppy. So let's go back to the website from the Dramatists Guild. where they talk about inclusion. And we'll go down here to their video, where they speak for 1 minute, and we'll watch that together.
Hi, I'm Christine Toy Johnson. I'm proud to serve as treasurer of the Dramatists Guild of America, as well as chair of our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. We wanted to find a new option for writers to use to advocate for full inclusion in our productions of any size at theaters across the country. And so after months of working alongside our Business Affairs Department and the DEI Committee, the Dramatists Guild is proud to roll out the first inclusion rider of its kind. This is a fantastic voluntary tool for us to not only reaffirm our authorial rights to choose our creative teams, but also to make sure our value systems are aligned with our producing collaborators and to hold each other accountable for our shared commitments. Stay tuned for a series of webinars we have planned to help us all get started.
Okay, so she seems very interested and very excited. And this explains more about it. Now we go back to the big screen and let me show you something else that was also included with this. As they say, the particularities are in the details. And this little fold-out thing was included in my package. What is the count? Well, the count studies. I'll show it to you. See if I can read it from the screen. Because it's very interesting and it's worth having a conversation about. The count studies whose plays get produced on American stages. Who gets revived? Who has a chance to enter the canon, okay? Who becomes a part of the theatrical canon, the history. And whose don't. Begun in 2010 as part of the advocacy effort of the Lilies in partnership with the Dramatists Guild, the Count gathers production data from a diverse sample of 147 not-for-profit theaters nationwide as chosen by the Dramatists Guild regional representatives. The focus is on theaters that produce contemporary work, which means new work, not revivals, not Shakespeare, Sophocles. The Count studies gender, race, and nationality of the creators of plays and musicals. Due to the size of the data set and intersectionality, we could only reliably break down race into two groups. BIPOC, people of color, and white. The Count collects national statistics and breaks them down by region and city. Our findings are presented in 3 installments in hopes of creating a dynamic record of change over time. Okay, so that's the background of what they're trying to do. And then this whole thing folds out. So you're reading. That's just the front side. Okay, so someone would tell you about this. You think, oh gosh, that sounds really great. And then you start looking at what they're tallying. Is it good news for you or is it bad news for you? Well, let's see what we have. Percentages of new plays produced by race and gender. The first count that was done 73% of new plays were by white men. 17% were by white women. 6% were by BIPOC men. 4% were by BIPOC women. The second count. 62% white men, 22% white women, 8% BIPOC men, 7% BIPOC women. The third count. 59% white men, 21% white women, 10% BIPOC men, 10% BIPOC women. So what this tells you, here's the key on the side there, is that if you are a white man looking to get your new play produced, and you're new or not established, you're probably going to have a harder time getting your play produced in a regional theater than someone else. And that's very interesting, that the white men are going down, the graduates 25%, the census in 2019 30%. So you go from a high of 73% down to 30%. Now, the question becomes is, if you're an old white guy, it looks to me like you're in trouble if you hope to have a future in the theater, if you're not well established and have a well-known name. Is that a concern? Someone would say, well, you're on a line, and there are only so many productions that can be done in a year, so old white man, get off my line because I'm coming up and I want to take your place. And the replacement appears to be the purpose of this whole thing. Which is fine, but it is also a concern to people who want to get their plays produced. But now you have to be not only the right color, but the right gender. More information, all bad news for the old white man. And I understand people need a chance. But what they're asking Dramatists Guild members to do is to support this replacement theory, to give more people an opportunity to get their play produced. But it's at the expense of old white men. And maybe the theater's been white for too long. The theater is a very woke and politically correct place. And they do it because they believe that that's where social change can best happen, is on the live stage. And I support that, but I'm just not sure how many old white men who are in a position of power, who want to keep their line, and I'm not talking about me because I'm not involved with this, but it does make me wonder how many people of that nature and stature, and they read this, and they say, ooh, they're replacing me. And the guild is saying, hey, yeah, we are replacing you. It's called inclusion rider. So we want to make sure that you're including people who are not like you, which is fine. But it's not necessarily a grand, wonderful thing for the old white guy. The old white guy saying there, wait a minute, you want me to actively support the demise of me and people like me. And it appears the guild and its supporters are saying, that's right. Get off the line. Your time here is through. And then you sort of, when you think about it, begin to understand some of this political male white rage that you see expressing itself particularly in the political realm on the right side of the channel. And they're feeling disparaged and put out just because of who they are. And they do have opportunities, and every day is white man's day in America. I understand that fully. And you can make that change, but to make that change, I guess you have to have the help of the ugly old white man, or it's not going to really happen very readily. And you're seeing politically in Washington that the old white men standard are not letting it happen as best they can. But in the theater, you're expected to go along and help it happen, which is perfectly fine, if it can work out. So that's the inclusion rider from the Guild. And just to prove myself, this is my page on the Dramatists Guild. I'm there, fully supporting what they're doing. Peter Stone, who was the previous head of the Dramatists Guild, was a great mentor of mine. I worked with him on a couple of shows. Arthur Kopit was deeply involved with the Guild. Adolph Green, Betty Comden, deeply involved with the Guild. Worked with them as well. And they are old white people. So, get off the line. Help other people take your line. And a lot of those people that I mentioned were not really interested in helping new young people they didn't know. They wanted to keep what they had. They were making millions of dollars a year, and they knew there were only so many slots available on the Broadway stage, and so they would do everything they could to not help if they didn't have to. And now the Guild, which they were a part of, is sort of saying to them, even though they're all dead now, saying to them, well, if you're not going to get off your line voluntarily, and we can't force you off your line, when your line ends and your time comes, I guess you're just going to have to remove yourself by dying. And then we will choose your replacement. And if the Guild gets less white and less male, and the rest of America becomes less white and less male, then that's forward progress. And that's the intention and the purpose of the future of being woke in America. So that's the Dramatists Guild side of this. And after a short blood pressure break, we're going to come back and talk about another issue that is sort of related to this, but not exactly, but sort of. And that is with the Authors Guild. We will be back in one moment. And we're back from break. Thank you for being here on David Boles Live. Yes, we are live. Doing well, feeling good. If you aren't subscribed yet to Boles.tv, please subscribe. Then you can participate in our wonderful chat here. You can say hello to people. You can ask questions. You can be involved. Thank you so much for following. Give a snore. You can type an exclamation point and type QUOTE and hit return. And it'll pop up a little quote. The secret to success is in controlled viciousness. We seem to get that quote almost every day. I must be telling myself something because I wrote that quote. So we've been talking about the idea of being politically correct and partisan and doing the right thing in the theater and in life. And the live theater should reflect the change that we want to see in ourselves. So it's a very touchy subject on who gets replaced. Because you sort of need the people in power to go along with the idea of them being replaced. And a lot of them will say, okay, you can replace me, but wait till I'm done and then replace me. Reminds me of a guy I know who owns land in the Midwest that used to belong to the local Indian tribe. And this guy likes to think of himself as a historian and a wonderful person, even though he's really not. I had class with him, so I can vouch for what a terrible person he is. And a couple of years ago, he made this big announcement. Oh boy. And he's an old white guy, older and whiter than me. Made a big announcement in the newspaper saying, oh, all my acreage really belongs to the local Indian tribe. So what I'm going to do after I die and after my wife dies, and my wife is 30 years younger than me, once we die, we're going to donate the land back to where it rightly belongs, to the local Indian tribe. And the newspaper and the people are like, oh my gosh, isn't it wonderful that this old white man is going to give back the land that was stolen from the Indians that he purchased. Okay, well, my take on that is this. If you, as a historian, truly believe that the land you are living on, that you may have purchased, but that you're living on, truthfully and honestly belongs to the local Indian tribe, why the heck don't you get off it? Why don't you get off the line and replace yourself and do the right thing and give them their land back now? Why should they have to wait another 25, 30, 50 years for their land back? Well, I'm living on it right now, but when I'm dead, they can have it. Well, that's just the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. If you know something is wrong and needs to be righted, and you have the power to make it right, but you won't because it's inconvenient to you, then why do you get credit in the newspaper for this wonderful donation that you're making that really isn't a donation at all? It's a returning of things the way they should have been in the first place. So there's my mini rant on that. Which takes us into our next topic of conversation. I'm a member of the Authors Guild, and they are a guild, not a union, just like the Dramatists Guild. The Authors Guild deals with people who write mainly books. Some journals, some poetry, other kinds of publishing, but not the life stage. And the Authors Guild is active politically, and all of that is just fine. And this is their latest email to me, but to everybody who's in the guild. And they're very upset, because they're all about protecting authors' rights. And they will help you with you if you have tax issue, if you get a letter from someone threatening your royalties, you can write to them and their legal team will look at your contracts or look at the threatening letter and give you informal advice, which is really terrific, and it's all part of your yearly membership fees. So the Guild takes a hard stance on author rights, which I appreciate, but I'm not always sure that it's helpful in the end. So here's the thing from the Authors Guild saying, despite strong opposition from the New Zealand Society of Authors and international groups, including the Authors Guild, the National Library of New Zealand, NLNZ, is moving ahead with its plan to donate 400,000 books from its overseas collection to the Internet Archive for digitization and lending through its open library platform. This collection likely contains tens of thousands of books written by American authors, many still protected by copyright, and may include your books. While it's unfortunate that New Zealand officials are choosing to partner with the Internet Archive, an entity that has consistently flouted copyright law over our objections, the NLNZ is allowing any author whose book is included in the collection to opt out of the scheme in response to the concerns raised about the legality of controlled digital lending. And then it tells you how you can go and opt out of this. Now, I've never really understood that. My idea is, as an author, get as much money up front as you can and then be done with it. Author royalties may be great, but for the majority of authors, you're never going to see royalties. Just self-publish. People will, can, and do consistently steal your work on a regular basis. And they republish it, and they make money off of what you write. And there's nothing you can really do about it, because you stomp on one foot and another foot pops up on the other side to kick you in the head. It is an endless coercion against you. Even though you are 100% right, you will not win against these people who are trying to steal your work. And that includes the National Library of New Zealand. So would you rather be included in the National Library of New Zealand or excluded? Because the Authors Guild, really, they're against libraries. They want people buying books, so authors get paid. Authors do not get paid when 10 people check out one copy of their book from the local library. It's always been an issue. And now with the digitization of local libraries, where 100,000 people can check out that one book digitally, there is no money at all for the author. And I say for 99% of the authors in the world, they're not getting paid anything anyway. So why not let them just be part of it? If the idea of writing is to influence people and to change minds, I am of the mind of I would rather have someone reading my work, even if it's stolen, than having it behind a paywall where people cannot touch it at all. And that has always been my philosophy in publishing, in doing a podcast, in publishing many books, and the blog. Now, the stream is a different thing because that costs us a lot of money. We have equipment we have to buy. It's very expensive to stream reliably. So, you hope you don't operate in too much of a deficit when you're streaming, even though you will starting out. But I would rather be part of something than not be part of something when it comes to my writing. And you can go to Boles.com. Maybe we'll go there right now. And we'll go to scripts. There's also writing, but we'll go to scripts. It's the easy one. Here's the blah, 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 scripts, blah, blah, blah. Here are scripts that I have produced, published, written, that you can read, download, produce them. Just send me an email, tell me what you're going to do. You click on this, which is the first page of the script, and it downloads the script for you. I would rather have people reading my stuff for free than having it sit in a drawer. I'm also of the mind that writers' workshops are detrimental to the writing process. We have very limited hours in the day. We have a lot to get done. And to be making time to go and sit around and talk about writing, in person or online, to me is the antithesis of what a writer should be. You should be sitting down and creating something instead of talking about the process. But I'm out on my own on that too. So here's the blah 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 of that publishing project that the Guild is so upset about. We are nearing the end of a project to review and rehome 600,000 books from our overseas published collections. Find out about the project. We update this page regularly with information about the project. Okay. So this is all about how they're scanning and what they're doing with it and the Internet Archive. In July 2021, we announced our agreement with the Internet Archive to donate books left at the end of OPC review process so they can be digitized and preserved. Okay, what's wrong with that? They're trying to prevent another Alexandria library burning down so they can have many copies of a book so it will never be lost. So this is the details of what's going on, and this is the Internet Archive and what's happening. So the Guild, the Authors Guild, is against that, but they're not really against it. They're just saying we are against it, but we're making you aware of it. That if you don't like it too, you can write to them and have your books excluded from this digitization process. I would like to be digitized, please. I would like my entire body digitized and included. For profit. And this is my Authors Guild page, so you can see here I am in good standing. List of books, some of my books. Who I am, what have you done, who are you, why are you here? There I am. Okay. So it's not like I'm ranting without any kind of skin in the game. And here's the Wikipedia page, Authors Guild versus Google. Oh, so it's not just New Zealand. Authors Guild's been fighting the Google as well. Oh, what's been Google been doing? Well, if you remember, Google had a big plan a while ago to take every book ever written in the world and digitize it and put it in a library and preserve it forever. And the Authors Guild says, no, you can't because you don't have the rights to do that. And Google said, I think we do. And so they had a big thing. Everybody went to court. Two separate lawsuits, including one from 3 authors represented by the Authors Guild and another by the Association of American Publishers, was filed in 2005, charging Google with copyright infringement. Google worked with the litigants in both suits to develop a settlement agreement, the Google Book Search Settlement Agreement, that would have allowed it to continue the program, though paying out for works it had previously scanned, creating a revenue program for future books that were part of the search engine. And here's where it gets really interesting. In late 2013, after the class action status was challenged, the district court granted summary judgment in favor of the Google, dismissing the lawsuit and affirming the Google Book Project met all legal requirements for fair use. The Second Circuit Court of Appeals upheld the district court's summary judgment in October 2015, ruling Google's project provides a public service without violating intellectual property law. The U.S. Supreme Court subsequently denied a petition to hear the case. So, the Google won. They can scan your books. And if you don't like it, too bad. And now it's just called Google Books. Google Books, previously known as Google Book Search and Google Print and codenamed Project Ocean, is a service from Google Incorporated that searches the full text of books and magazines that Google has scanned, converted to text using OCR, and stored in the digital database. Books are provided either by publishers and authors through Google Books program or Google's library partners through the Library Project. Additionally, Google has partnered with a number of magazine publishers to digitize their archives. So this is all about fair use. Now, if you're on YouTube and you include a YouTube video in your live stream, you're probably going to get a dunning notice from Google or a Google partner saying, hey, even though you only use 10 seconds of that video, you are violating the DMCA. Well, what about fair use? Does that only apply to the Google? Apparently it does. And you can fight it, you can go to court, and you can do all that. But you're not going to win. Now, in just a moment, we're going to talk about the Library Project. But right now, it's time for another blood pressure break. It's been a busy day. Thank you for your patience. And we're back from break. Well, I feel like today's just one big rant. Just going on and on about everything. Old white guy sitting there just raging at the world. And maybe I am crying into the earth for no purpose whatsoever. So continuing with this Google thing, which I think is just fascinating. And honestly, I love the Google. I want to be memorialized and digitized and preserved by the Google. So this is Google's actual page talking about all of the books that it has digitized and what it's doing with them. And I think it's just very interesting. They now call it the Library Project. The Library Project makes it possible for users to search on Google through millions of books written in many different languages, including books that are rare, out of print, or generally unavailable outside the library system. I think that's wonderful. And a lot of authors publish online, never published in hard print, never published in paper. They are only digital. And who knows if your server is going to blow up, or Medium, or WordPress, or whatever, TypePad, movable type, goes out of business, stops functioning. Well, why not have your stuff in 100 different places? And yes, people will download it and steal it and resell it. So what? You write to be read. You do not write to earn money. If a book from the Library Project is determined to be in the public domain, the Google will make it fully available to the public and you'll be able to read the book from start to finish. Otherwise, you'll still be able to search through the text of a book, but Google Books will only display a few snippets of text to show you where your search term appears within the text of the book. And then you can buy the book. Sometimes rights holders of in-copyright book give us permission to show more than just a snippet. In those cases, you might see a percentage of pages from the book, or even an entire book, depending on the wishes of the rights holder. How libraries partner with Google. Google works with many libraries from around the world to include their collections in Google Books. The libraries receive a digital copy of every book scanned from their collection to preserve and to make available the patrons or copyright law allows. Okay, I like it. Now we go on to the nemesis of the whole thing, which is the Internet Archive. Formerly known as the Wayback Machine to kids like me on the internet who are trying to find information. Now, if you remember my story from last week or 2 weeks ago about our lovely writer friend Katha, and how we lost a story she had published many years ago, and I was able to find it by doing a search on the Internet Archive using the Wayback Machine. And it gave me a perfect copy of, pretty much perfect, copy of her article. It was a miracle. And without the Wayback Machine, that article would have been lost to the ether of the internet forever and ever. But it wasn't. It was preserved. So I am a big supporter of the Wayback Machine. When I have a new page, a new project, an important project, if I make a change to a page, I go to the Wayback Machine, I say, look, this is my new page. Please scan it and hold it in your archive now and forever. I want people to be able to find it. So let's just have a little fun with the Wayback Machine. So enter a URL or keywords. Let's do what I did yesterday for fun and look up celebrity semiotic. Now, celebrity semiotic was a little celebrity blog that I had on Microsoft. I think it was called Live Spaces. I was testing out the system and I would write silly things about famous people. And then Live Spaces shut down and all that content, it wasn't a lot of content. I moved over to Boles blogs. So if you do a search on celebrity semiotic, let's see what comes up. What comes up first is this: please donate to the Internet Archive. Okay, so celebrity semiotic. that URL, my content, over the years, saved 63 times between January 27 and February 2021. Okay? Pretty darn good for a little tiny dumb blog that I was writing just to be silly. And you can see when it was active and what was happening. So let's just pick a day, a time frame. Let's pick this from, 2011? Click that, see what happens. Okay, so it presents you with a calendar of all the dates when that site was captured. So July looks big. I don't know why. Oh, there are 2 snapshots, so we'll click on that day. We'll click on the first snapshot. And just see what happens. We're waiting for the web.archive.org. And we'll just see what pops up. I did not test this yesterday. I tested the very first instance of Celebrity Semiotic. And it was a redirect. Not very interesting. Now this is interesting, okay? I've never seen this here before. I certainly recognize it from before. This looks like WordPress. Google Voice blog. Images are not always preserved, which I find disappointing, but that's okay. And these are snapshots of the pictures. These are not live archives of a site, because the site no longer exists in this form. So we're talking about presidential polls, celebrity endorsements, sell more product. You can see our recent comments here. Very interesting stuff, right? And this is all about celebrities. And at that time, I believe this was a separate blog in the Boles Blogs network. Oh, here it is. Boles Blogs network. Yeah. Boles Blues, United Stage, Panopticonic, Carceral Nation, Meaningful, Dramatic Medicine, Scientific Aesthetic, Urban Semiotic, Relation Shaping, Word Funk, Boles University, Celebrity Semiotic, 10TXT, which we talked about yesterday with Howard Stein, 10-sentence articles, stories that he did not like, Go Inside Magazine, the original, Boles Blogs, and then my other sites. So that's the network that we had. It was very hard because you had to write like 11 articles a week just to keep each blog alive with readers. That's why everything got compressed into one. So this is how the Internet Archive works. It preserves things as they were and as it was found. I think it's absolutely delicious and delightful. And I've given them money because I absolutely support what they're trying to do. They're trying to make a record of human capacity. And I absolutely support every moment of it. So now we talk about fair use and being woke and being progressive. And now we move back in time just a few years to when I was living in Nebraska with my mentor, Mr. Marshall Jameson, who I had great respect for. And he was a producer of many fine projects. One of them was the Mark Twain series on PBS. Pudd'nhead Wilson, Life on the Mississippi. He did like 5 or 6 shows. Wonderful stuff. And we had worked on a William Jennings Bryan project together, which I will talk about in the future. But one thing I really wanted to do was take a Nebraska author, and not Willa Cather, because everybody wants Willa Cather. Talk about Willa Cather. And bring one of those books to life on television and put it on the Nebraska ETV network with Marshall producing and directing and me writing the script. And Marshall said, great. What do you want to do? So I said, well, Mari Sandoz, Marisandoz, great Nebraska author, not as well known as Willa Cather, but she's very important to the history of Nebraska. I want to take her book, Capital City, and do it on television. And Marshall said, great, go do it. And I said, what do you mean go do it? How do I do it? I don't have the rights to that. And Marshall said, get the book, write to the people who own the rights, and see what they say. So I was 16, 17 years old, so I wrote to them and said, hey, I'm a student at the University of Nebraska, and I want to take Mari Sando's Capital City book, and I want to turn it into a TV show. Will you let me do it? And that, back then you used typewriters to communicate, and I sent the letter, and about 2 weeks later I got an official reply back from the Mari Sando's lawyers in New York City who own the rights to her books. They said, we're very happy to help you. In your interest to adapt Capital City for the Nebraska ETV network. Although I don't think I said Nebraska ETV, I said I wanted to do an adaptation of it for television. And they said the rights fee for a television adaptation of Capital City is $14,000 for 1 year. Renewable at $14,000 per year. And what that means is, for a year, I have the right to adapt her story, television, sell it, get it produced within that year. And if I'm outside of that year, then I have to pay another $14,000. So I thought, oh, $14,000. That seems like a lot to me, but what do I know? I'm not in television. So I went and had a meeting with Marshall. I said, hey, look, I can get the Mari Sando's book. He said, great, fantastic. What are you going to do? I said, well, I'd have to come up with some money. I mean, maybe the network could help. And Marshall said, what do you mean? I said, well, I heard back from the lawyers. He said, oh, no. Lawyers. I said, yeah, lawyers. Do you have the letter? Yes, I have the letter. So I gave him the letter. Marshall read the letter. He sighed and laughed and said, David, $14,000 for a year is ridiculous. They don't want you to have the rights to Mari Sando's Capital City. I said, yeah, I kind of got that feeling, but I thought maybe you thought it was okay. He said, well, maybe if we were a big network with a lot of money to throw around and we were already going to do it, we'd just pay the fee and go. But he said, this is just kind of all on speculation. You write the script, I take it to the people at the network, try to get it produced. Maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't, but somebody's going to have to come up with $14,000 for at least 1 year. So we threw it all away. But I've always wanted to do Capital City, and I'll show you why. It's a very, very interesting book. This is how her book looks right now, Mari Sando's Capital City. Published by Bison Books, University of Nebraska Press. And this is the story of Capital City, first published in the dark days immediately before World War II. Capital City is Mari Sando's angriest and most political novel. Like many important American novels of the 1930s, John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath, Jack Conroy's This Inherited, Robert Cardwell's Land of Plenty, Capital City depicts the troubles of working people trapped in the Great Depression. It's a unique portrayal of how the Depression affected the Great Plains. It examines the forces that bitterly contend for wealth and power. Sandoz researched the daily life and the behind-the-scenes operations of several state capitals in the 30s before synthesizing them in this novel, which is part allegory, part indictment, part warning. Famous for her passionate writing, Sandoz imbued Capital City with the full measure of her outrage. And to that I say, wow. I just love the idea of that book. However, this is, very, let's say, woke. Very 20th century. I'll show you the book cover when I was looking at this in the 1980s. And you tell me if that's the same book that's being advertised. It is, but in a different way. This is the book that I knew. This is the book cover that interested me as a young author wanting to take her work and adapt it for the television stage. A bloody wall of gunshots and blood spatter. Capital City is a violent, vicious book that actually informs what's happening in the world today. So that's the 80s paperback version of Capital City. But look at this, my friend. Capital City. Original hardback cover of the book. Are those fireworks or shotgun blasts? I don't know. Is this how it looks today? Not as interesting. That's how it looked back then. Well, it does look a little bit like blood spatter and not fireworks. Here's another one. Even redder and bloodier. And there she is. That's Mari. That's a tough woman right there. And a wonderful writer. So it makes you wonder how things get done in America. If you have $14,000, you have an opportunity. If you're a kid, a university student who just wants a chance, the right to adapt something in television to see if you could sell it, and then if I could sell it, wrap that $14,000 into the price of the purchase of my book, okay. But no, the lawyers would not have it. The lawyers said, no, you pay us first and then you write the adaptation. And I understand that a lot of these books were coming into the public domain. They wanted to squeeze as much money out of them as they possibly could. So they're charging a teenage kid in Nebraska $14,000 a year to adapt Capital City. So I never did the adaptation. I learned, hey, if you're going to adapt something, adapt your own work. You write the novel. And I did. I wrote a novel the next year myself based on life in Nebraska, with the intention of adapting it for the live stage and then movies and theater and television. As someone told me, adapting a book or a novel that you don't write or own the rights to adapt is like polishing a car that you do not own. You're making it look beautiful. You're increasing its value temporarily, but it's not your car. So I learned, hey, it's better not to adapt other people's works. Just worry about inventing new pieces of work and art that belong to you and you alone. And now we're going to take one more step in this direction of political correctness and wokeness and being contemporary. But we have one more break. And then I'll be back. We are back from break. Thank you for sticking around. David Boles live. Yes, still beating. Fully alive now. An hour ago, not so sure. But we have persevered throughout the day together. And now we're going to kind of wrap up this idea of publishing and word meaning and opportunity and repression and being replaced and taking up a line and all of that with a conversation about the word kindly. Kindly. Now, in the online world, kindly has an interesting meaning in America. It may have a different meaning in the rest of the world, and it does. But it's also a marker word. It's a word that makes you raise your hand and say, oh, wait a minute. We got a problem with this. In many scam emails of people trying to get your information or your money, they will use the word kindly. Kindly is a signpost that you're about to get ripped off. And some people agree with this and some people do not agree with this. But here we go. From the University of Houston, University Information Technology has a wonderful site to help you, people, students, faculty, recognize these scams of people trying to take your stuff. And when you go on some of the scam websites, it's very clear that kindly is a word that is a signpost that means you're about to get ripped off. So here's a job scam email, blah, 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 blah. Kindly get back to us. Now, Americans do not use the word kindly. It's just not colloquial. Unless you mean it sort of snottily. You know, kindly give me that piece of paper right now. So kindly get back to us with your phone number and email. Here's another scam from the University of Houston. Kindly email back with your mobile number if you're interested in this job position. Okay, that's a second. Here's a third example. Hello, are you available for a personal assistant job offer, $300 weekly? Kindly get back to me with a mobile number so I can reach you at any point in time. Thank you so much. So people get these emails and they don't know, well, is this person scamming me or not? And they ask the group, and the wisdom of the crowd says, well, if you see the word kindly, that is a red flag. That these are not Americans. They're trying to come after you. They're trying to steal your money because kindly is used out of context and it doesn't read right. So be very wary. And then there are some people online who say, wait a minute. This is out of hand. It's a little bit ridiculous. And you think, what do you mean? Well, here we go. On Reddit, in the scams subreddit, identifying a scam using kindly. And this person says, I've been seeing something on this sub that it's only scammers, so use the word kindly. So kindly equates to a scam. I disagree. Maybe I'm wrong, in which case you can correct me. Using the word kindly is common and accompanies many official letters among the British people or people from former British colonies. Most official letters have the word used in different scenarios, like kindly, find attached, kind regards, or in kind. Its use is almost, in that context of the British world, unquestionable. Thank you so much for following Glitter Moons. Those who don't use it, kindly, in this context are Americans. Americans use please a lot instead of kindly. So to me, using the word kindly doesn't necessarily mean the email or text is a scam, but rather it may give you an idea from whom, Americans don't use whom the scam or text originated. So as an American, if you see kindly in a scam text, there's a 99% chance your scammer is from outside the country. But to most English speakers, it can be a scam or an official letter, meaning you really need to give more giveaways in the text to discern if it's a scam or not. I'll appreciate your perspective on this. And then you have a lot of replies. And pretty much they're saying, yeah, that's true. So, how many people in the UK are writing to Americans kindly offering them opportunities to make money or jobs? That's why it's a sign that it's a scam. Because these scammers are not American. They are using the British context of the word kindly, and for us dumb Americans who are aware, we see the word kindly and the hair on our back of our neck goes up like, wait a minute, that's not how we talk here. This person is not writing from Iowa to try to get me a job or to give me money. This person's coming from outside the country. And therefore, probably, more than likely, it's a scam. And this whole kindly thing reminds me when I was in graduate school. Not at Columbia University in the city of New York, or somewhere else. And we had this teacher who was a very hateful person. And students tried to avoid her as much as possible, but sometimes she taught core classes on purpose so she could terrorize people. And you quickly came to learn that if she ever commented on something that you said by using the word interesting, she was really telling you to F off. And we all kind of figured that out. Because we'd say something and she would say, well, isn't that interesting? And oh boy, she would come right after you by saying interesting. So to me, kindly and interesting are the same sort of warning sign. Be very careful, because things are happening all around you. And you better be careful, because the kindly people are coming after you in the most interesting ways. Well, it's that time again. It is that time to not play Bobby Fischer. We are not Bobby Fischer, but we are going to play just a little bit of chess. Because when we play chess, we're not really playing chess, we're talking about the world. And maybe we appreciate that about each other, and maybe we just can't stand it about each other. But I appreciate that you're here with me, and that you're learning with me, and that you allow me to make mistakes. White to play. Here we go. Well, they always like us putting the king in jeopardy, so I think the one move I have is to move this rook this way. Put the king in check. Who can stop me? Nobody, really. It looks right. It feels right. Which in this world together often means it's wrong. Do I do it or do I run away? It's becoming more terrifying by the moment, but I'm ready to try it and just see what happens. That was the right move. Oh my gosh. Okay, now this is where it gets tricky, because now I gotta make another move. We're always trying to go for 100%. Uh-huh. I believe the next move would be this pawn here. Because these latest set of puzzles really seem to like to put pawns in charge. And that would technically work. That would put the king in check. Which I sort of like. And then the king can move here. But then I have this bishop here. We'll try it. I think that's the right move. Do it before I run out of time. Okay, perfect. Now. Okay, this one's good. I think we can get 100% of this. So now we have this bishop here. That will move right here. And then go zam, like this. Put the king back in check. And where can the king go? The king cannot go here because of this pawn. The king cannot go back because of this pawn. The king cannot go here because of this pawn. I believe I'm going to win this puzzle. Then the question is, do I retire, do I rest on my laurels, or do I try another puzzle? We won't know until we actually do it, so I'm going to do it immediately. I have won the game! 3 moves! 100%. Took me 2 minutes and 34 seconds. So tell me, punk, do you feel lucky? Why, yes, today I do. I'm going to do another one. 2 moves. White to play. Here we go. Okay, they get progressively more difficult, so... They want you to put the king in check immediately, if it's possible. I always think it's possible, but often Chessable disagrees with me. So to me, the obvious move is just this to this. Bishop here goes right to the king. Where's the king gonna move? Backward. I believe that's the right move. I'm gonna make it. Oh yeah. Oh yeah! Okay, we got that right. Now I just gotta make one more move and I'm gonna have 100%. Again. Okay, so the only move... Okay, this is just perfect. The only move that makes sense is this rook here, which puts the king in check here. Yeah. King can't go here because of my pawn. I'm running out of time. King can't go here or here because of this knight. And the king cannot go here because of this bishop. Okay? So, I better make the move. 2 moves, 100%. Time studied, 1 minute, 40 seconds. XP gained 60. Well, that's 100%. 2 times. Do you still feel lucky, punk? No. I'm retiring ahead today. So Robert Bly died a couple of days ago. Interesting writer, wonderful poet, had a lot of feeling for what he wrote. So today we're going to wrap things up with some wonderful thoughts from Robert Bly. And here's one of his poems. Surprised by Evening. There is unknown dust that is near us, waves breaking on shores just over the hill, trees full of birds that we have never seen, nets drawn with dark fish. The evening arrives. We look up, and it is there. It has come through the nets of the stars, through the tissues of the grass. Walking quietly over the asylums of the waters. The day shall never end, we think. We have hair that seemed born for the daylight. But at last the quiet waters of the night will rise, and our skin shall see far off as it does underwater. Oh, it's just a beautiful poem. And now we have one more to complete our day of vision and wokeness and being fallible people in an infallible world. This is a very different poem with a very different tone, but still just quite as beautiful and invigorating. People Like Us by Robert Bly. There are more like us all over the world. There are confused people who can't remember the name of their dog when they wake up, and people who love God but can't remember where he was when they went to sleep. It's all right. The world cleanses itself this way. A wrong number occurs to you in the middle of the night. You dial it. It rings just in time to save the house. And the second-story man gets the wrong address, where the insomniac lives. And he's lonely, and they talk, and the thief goes back to college. Even in graduate school, you can wander into the wrong classroom and hear great poems lovingly spoken by the wrong professor. And you find your soul, and greatness has a defender. And even in death, you're safe. I thank you for being here today. It's been a fascinating, wonderful conversation about the role the soul plays in all of us and how we choose to define our role in the world. Do we stay on a line, get off a line, make room on the line for others? Do we just keep what we have and not let anyone else in? Do we want our works published freely, to be shared and read without any profit? Or are we only into restriction and constriction and royalty payments? In the end, does only the money matter? Or is there more to it for us than that? I'm always interested in what you have to say. Please join us here in Boles TV. Chat, BOLES.TV. Subscribe, chat with us. You can ask me questions online at Twitter, at David Boles. On Facebook, /Boles. Instagram, Boles Books. YouTube, Boles Blues. I look forward to hearing from you. And until tomorrow, I wish you the very best. And I hope to see you soon. Thanks for joining us.